No one.
Welcome into the Gators Online Podcast. Zach Abolverdi and Nick Torre here, and we are joined by a very special guest, Florida Gators Athletic Director Scott Stricklin, live from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, and a lot of topics here to cover with Scott today. Appreciate you coming through.
One full hour of baseball talk. That's
right.
That's what Scott and I figured out, right? Just 1 hour of baseball.
That's your guys' favorite sport.
Yeah. First half hour, we'll talk the rotations. Second half hour, the lineup.
Yeah.
Leave a little bit of time at the end for the bullpen, right?
And then we have to start projecting where is Florida going to go for a region.
Absolutely.
So there, plenty to talk about.
Have you seen some of his old baseball highlights back in the day? He still got his profile, yeah.
Oh, my perfect game profile, yeah.
It's still
No, I've not.
It's up there.
We actually have
Is
some.
that in your Twitter bio? That link?
It's not. It's not in my Twitter bio. No.
So, well, obviously, baseball is a fun time of year, and a lot of fun things going on, Scott, with Florida athletics, football, basketball, new coaches, but obviously the facilities and everything coming up with the complex. We saw today on Twitter, we got a little sneak peek of Katie Turner and some of the players. I don't know what they were looking at.
That was a
the
tease.
new locker room?
Yeah, allegedly it was the new locker room. A little video put out with.
It's actually the lockers that will go in the new locker room.
Okay.
That are pretty spectacular, and that's something that we can't wait for the facility to be completed. I was in it 2 days ago. I had a chance to walk through it, and it's coming along really quickly, and we're probably a couple months away. So sometime in July, late July, our kids will be able to get in there, and can't wait to show off, all the incredible areas and the video wall and all the graphics. But that locker room may be a place that you might have to come on a visit to actually get a chance to see that. But it's going to be unlike any in football, not just college football, any in football that I think is going to be really special.
Now, fans always talk about this, and Florida's always, I guess, had this standpoint of we're not going to put stuff in there just to put it in there. Just because somebody else had a chocolate water fountain, we don't need that. That's not necessary. So how did you balance making it state-of-the-art, making it what's going to excite the fans, kids, the student athletes that are in there, and not say, hey, we need 24-karat gold faucets everywhere?
Well, I think there's a way to make it really nice and not be wasteful, right? Yeah. I like nice things. So you go into the Florida Ballpark or Katie Cecil Presley Stadium or some of these renovations that we've done. I think they have a nice quality to them, but there's not gold-plated toilets. There's some really cool things in this in the football building, and part of it is we get a chance to tell our story. Make sure that you're highlighting the Heismans and the national championship trophies and the SEC championships and all those things that you're so proud of, NFL guys, all that stuff. But there's some functionality that to what's going to go on there. But you can also make the functionality piece really nice without it being wasteful.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest things or not biggest things, but some of the things, should I say, that Billy came in and wanted that facility to kind of have for him, and some of the things that maybe were tweaked along the way?
I wouldn't say there's anything major on that list.
Sure.
Billy, one of my memories is he had been on, we hired him at the end of November. He coached that last game the first week in December at Louisiana. I think it was about 2 weeks later, he had a big recruiting weekend, and it was his first time to walk through the facility and he was with the recruits.
Yeah.
And the recruits went through, and they had moved on, and he hung back, and he and myself and Chip Howard Chip and I were kind of showing him some things and pointing out some things, because at this point walls weren't up and it was kind of big open spaces inside. And so we're trying to point some things out, and he got this grin on his face, and his comment to me was, "We've got a loaded gun here. Like, this thing is going to be pretty powerful when it's all said and done." Yeah. So a lot of his tweaks were related to, we have this huge graphics package we had put together. He had some different sayings and different emphasis that he wanted to make through the graphics. There was a part of the coaches' offices, we moved a few things around, some walls around, to create some different spaces that he wanted in the coaching space. The locker room really didn't change. We may have squeezed a few more lockers in a certain area.
Have to make any accommodations for the Army at all?
It's funny. So
a whole new building going on at a different side of campus.
There was actually a space in the building on the second floor that was not going to be enclosed. It was a second floor, kind of a roof above like the loading dock equipment area. And during the construction design, Dan Mullen actually said, why don't we close this in? There's always going to be a need for more people. We need the building to have the ability to expand.
Yeah. Can
we close that in and just like capture it? So one day if we want to go in and do something, we could. So, okay, good idea. We did that. And Dan, to his credit, had a lot of really good ideas about the facility. So we captured that space, and our thought was, 3 to 5 years, we may have to, kind of create some work areas in that. It's about a 3,000 square foot part of the building, and that is going to be fully operational when we move in
from day one.
Yeah, so it was. I don't know what we're going to do 3 to 5 years from now, but we're going to have enough space when everybody moves in originally here because of that added square footage.
Now, will you stay at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium where your office is now?
Yep. The administration of the UAA will stay there in the stadium. Football will move over, obviously training room, equipment room, strength staff. We'll have a whole new dining facility, so we'll have some staff over there to manage that. But everything else administratively will stay at the Swamp.
And I think I've asked you personally about this, but a lot of fans asked, what's that building going up in front of it? And I didn't know. You explained it to me, and it made a lot of sense. So if you could just tell people what is going in front, because they think, well, you're spending all this money to build a football standalone, and then you put some building in front of it, and you can't even see it now.
That's a new student health facility. So basically the new infirmary. Campus had a need for that and actually had identified that space. And I'll point out that even though McKeithen Stadium sat there before, that wasn't the UAA's land. That was the university's land the athletics was using. And when we relocated, university came in and said that part of that plot would be a great place for this student health center. And so I think once all the construction stuff is out of the way, you're going to have a great view. We're going to have a nice drive leading up to the front of the Hebner building, Hebner Center. The student health center is just going to be, add some density there to that location. There was actually some programming that we had in the training room for doctors' offices and examination rooms that we were able to take out and repurpose that space for some other things. I think a cryotherapy room and some other float tank type spaces that we wanted to get in there, because right across, really not even across the street, across a parking spot is going to be this brand new, beautiful campus student health center that our athletes will have, really convenient access to. So it worked out really well.
Not the worst resource to have right now.
No, I mean, and again, you think about from a recruiting standpoint, to have everything we're going to have in the Hebner Center with the training room and everything from a day-to-day football operations center. And then you have, an extension of the number one hospital in the state of Florida.
Right there.
The student health center right there. There's a lot of benefit.
And then just logistically with the football trainers and doctors, and it's all kind of centralized right there.
Absolutely. Now. And, you still have Limran there with track and volleyball, and a lot of athletes obviously be coming into the Hebner for the dining hall. It's just going to become a really usable hub.
Before we get too far down with facilities, we could talk about this all day. You mentioned Billy. For our listeners, we've talked about it at Todd Golden's introductory presser, but just his first 6 months on the job. What's it been like just seeing the early returns there and all the great things that he's done with the program? I know he hasn't coached a game yet, but to see so many people come out and talk about what it's like for just to work for the guy, and then the players, obviously what he's kind of done to improve what he calls the player experience.
He's a special individual. He's got so many worthy qualities. And in addition to being incredibly bright and having a great motor, his work ethic is off the chart. Incredibly detailed and organized, and obviously methodical and thoughtful about everything you do. As you guys see that part of it. But the humility and self-awareness he has is, you tie all that together. It's a pretty, you can see why he's been a successful leader up to this point, and you can see that why he's made the difference he's made at our place in such a short period of time, and the connection he makes with people, because it's not about him. He genuinely is interested in people. I've had situations where he and I are walking down the hall and we pass, one of the custodial staff. And, I've been around for 6 years now. And so I know him all by name. He's been around 6 weeks and he's like, "Hey, Andy, how you doing, man? How's your wife doing? She okay?" He makes connections with people that's genuine. None of this is phony. None of this is fake. We have a young lady who's a student manager, and you know how the managers will always throw footballs on the field before the team comes out before a game. And this young lady, because I've sat here and watched her the last couple of years, she has the best set of hands on campus. I think her dad was a coach. You can just tell she's really comfortable, throwing and catching a football. And she doesn't catch up against her body. She catches out like you're supposed to. And so Billy and I, before the orange and blue game, are standing out in the field and the managers are playing. I'm like, "Hey, do you know who has the best set of receiving hands on this campus?" And I said, he said, "Who?" And I said, "That young lady over there." And he goes, "Oh, Katie. Yeah, man, she's unbelievable." We've got 50 managers, and he knows them all by name. He's got a unique way of, and none of it's phony. None of it is an act. None of it is I've got to look good. It is just him being genuine. The other thing I would say is it's not uncommon when you have a brand new, any football coach, a successful coach or a new coach, for them to be really passionate about what they need and try to use their force of personality to leverage a situation. And sometimes those conversations can be really challenging, right? And so I'm probably talking around the edges here, but you know what I mean? Coach comes in, "Hey, this is what I need. What do you mean I can't do it that way? This is what we're doing.
Sure.
Figure it out." There's anytime you have a new staff, you've got to, okay, what are you trying to do? I saw this request come through. We don't have that in the budget, or where are you taking this out of? How can we figure this out? And Billy's been an absolute joy in every one of those conversations. There's yet to be a bad conversation or a difficult conversation because of the way he handles himself in that. He very much has an attitude of, tell me what we have to work with and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And he's just a really genuine, unique leader. And I'm so excited that he's with us, that he's leading the Gators, the kind of man he is, the impact he has on people. We talked about it probably at Todd's press conference as well, is how important the relational aspect of leadership and coaching is in this day and age. It's always been important. I think it's more important than ever. And he is really gifted in that area.
When he brought the parents in, I was like, whoa. I've never thought of doing an event like that where you bring all the parents in for like a meet and greet, but
it was basically a recruiting weekend for the parents of your current players.
Yeah. Which in this day and age, probably an important thing to do.
Yeah, we'll get into NIL, but it seems like it used to be you would get recruited and then you get on campus and you would go through a de-recruitment period.
Right.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of like, nope, you're recruiting for the whole 4 years. Someone's on campus now. But that's something that I remember when at Billy's introductory press conference and we get like the handout of his contract and all these other things. I'm like, man, this is more money I think that the staff he's had allotted for his staff. So, and we asked you about that and you said, well, he just made a compelling case. Can you get into specifics? Because I'd never seen it in 10 years at Florida, that much money allocated, but you're saying he's not hiring people just to give him a title and stick him in a corner.
Or watch popcorn, as he says.
Or watch popcorn. What was he able to tell you, hey, this is why we need this kind of infrastructure around to run the program that I think we need to run to be successful?
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to do it justice, but basically he has a vision for what he wants the program, what he thinks it should look like. And it's very detailed, it's very layered. By layered, I mean there's a lot of checks and balances. There's a lot of people not doing the same job, but doing complementary jobs. So there may be a recruiting analyst who's in charge of a certain position group or a certain recruiting area, and it's their job to look at tape for those guys. But the position coach or the who's either over that position or in that area, they also have a responsibility. And then you might have a Katie Turner or a Jacob LaFrance or someone else in the recruiting office. They have a certain role in that particular process. And then Billy himself has an evaluation role in that process. So everything is well thought out, and there's a lot of things he puts in place to make sure you eliminate mistakes and are as productive as possible. And also, and I give him a lot of credit for this, to make sure there's a work-life balance. So you don't have one person 24/7 doing that's all they do, and they can't get away and recharge. And also you have different sets of eyes looking at things. I'll tell you this, one of the, I was talking to someone who had worked for Coach Saban, who, when I was going through the evaluation process, and he was a big fan of Billy's. And this is someone I'd worked with in the past who reached out to me unsolicited, and I had never made the connection. But he said, "Hey, Billy Napier's really special." And we got talking about him, and I said, "So tell me something," because he was talking. He learned a lot from Coach Saban, and one of the things that's really interesting to me is Coach Saban's had a lot of his former assistants gone to be head coaches to varying levels of success. And so I asked the question, why have some of these guys been highly successful and some of these guys are no longer head coaches? And why do you think Billy would be one of the ones who'd be really successful? And without going into, a lot of the how Coach Saban does what he does, but from what I understand, he is incredibly disciplined in every part of his program, but especially the recruiting piece, meaning he evaluates a certain number of kids on the same night, at the same time, 52 weeks a year. And he goes over those evaluations with his staff the following day at a certain time, 52 weeks a year. And he makes a certain number of phone calls to kids at the same time every week, 52 weeks a year. And he's just incredibly disciplined and regimented in that.
Wow. You set your watch by it. Like Tuesday night, 6:30, Billy's watching tape. Next morning, he's going over that tape of those 8 to 10 guys.
And the evaluation itself is not is very detailed. It's I don't know if y'all have had a chance to hear Billy talk about measurements, but if I ask him about a recruit or a signee, he'll be like, he's got a 4.5 verified speed time, and his hand size is this, and this is his wing, and he's I know what all those things mean. I don't have the chart in my head of how to calibrate.
I joked with him about that after a press conference. I was like, I'm just going to start naming random players. And see if you've got him, because he does. You ask him about a recruit, not about a recruit because he can't talk about them, but you ask him about a player on the roster. I mean, I bet you he could tell me Marco Ortiz's verified speed, the long snapper, the verified speed, height, weight, maybe even what his GPA was since he just graduated. He would have all that stuff at the top of his head.
So the point is the answer to the question for this mutual friend that Billy and I had was, the guys who have been successful, who have come from Coach Saban's lineage, have kept that discipline, and the ones who haven't been as successful, they start tweaking it, and before long, they've watered it down to the place where it's not the same. And he said Billy is going to be as close to the way Coach Saban does it as anybody. That's not to say he's Coach Saban, so I want to be careful that Coach Saban's probably the most successful coach in the history of college football.
But following that formula, and that discipline.
And I think a lot of what you see with Billy, it's a relational based, I'll say faith based approach to Coach Saban's system, and so it's really person centered, but it's all the football pieces of it, come from his plans and thoughts there. Come from a really good basis and origin.
Before we transition to NIL and everything with that space, speaking specifically to Billy and all those qualities that you talked about, how, I guess, grateful and relieved do you feel that you have a head coach that has those qualities to deal with this climate and everything that's going on, where a lot of coaches that maybe don't might just throw their hands up and say, I can't do this anymore?
I really enjoy working with Billy. And so when you're going through challenging situations or you're trying to figure things out, and certainly where name, image, and likeness is concerned, there's a lot of figuring it out going on right now. It's really nice to be in the boat with somebody that where they're coming from. You share their values, you appreciate their character and what they're made of and how they're going to approach things. Billy is, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on with NIL that you hear about. I don't know how much of it's true. There's my guess is
feel free to speculate on the podcast.
Yeah. My guess is that, there are some enterprising agents that are putting stuff out there to try to create a market and, or try to encourage a market.
Yeah.
But, Billy is really, wants to do it the right way, but also wants Florida to be as successful as we can be. And we want to support our student athletes within the rules to the maximum extent we can.
Well, to me, you can have rules, but if they're not being enforced, are there rules? Like if I'm on the highway at 2 a.m. and there's not a cop there, that 70 mile an hour on 75 seems a lot more like a suggestion to me than a rule or a law. Now, if the cop is sitting there behind well, I found out real quick that it's actually a rule, but it seems to me that there hasn't been guidance from the NCAA or enforcement, and now you're getting into a situation where it's like you're playing a game with no rules. And I think Billy has even said, we're playing free agency without a salary cap. So I think that it seems like the NCAA hasn't wanted to enforce it because I think you're going to get litigation from it, and Congress has kind of yet to wrap their mind around the whole thing of it. And it's a rapidly changing landscape, I think.
Yeah, it's a pretty unique intellectual exercise to think about all the
I just got a headache.
derivatives of what NIL could be. There are, what the NCAA came out with this week is it kind of reiterated, hey, NIL is allowed, but there's a rule that has been in place for a long time that has never gone away, which is boosters can't be a part of recruiting.
Yeah.
And that's never changed. That's always been there. Now, to your point about the speeding analogy, my guess is there's boosters who have been a part of the recruiting process in the past, even before name, image, and likeness. So, there may not be
those rules weren't getting enforced either. Sometimes.
Right. So the cops aren't, they're not going to catch everybody who's speeding, right? We know that. But if you're a law abiding citizen and you're going to try to do things the right way, you're going to say, I'm going to do the right thing here, right? I'm not going to cut a corner.
Yeah.
We're not going to cut a corner. We're going to do things the right way. We don't want boosters involved in the recruiting process.
Yeah.
But, obviously we have some couple of high profile collectives that are out there and some athletes that are currently on our campus, not recruits. They're currently on our campus that have benefited seemingly.
Yeah.
It's limited to what the UAA can have. Really, we can't have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
We hear about it.
Yeah.
It's supposed to get reported to us. We've had a lot of those reported to us. I don't know that we've had everything reported to us. We remind our athletes all the time, hey, don't forget, you got to report this stuff.
Sure.
But, we're going to do things the right way. And, not everybody may do it that way.
Even at the risk then of getting left behind.
Yeah. So this goes back to the relational piece.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to get 85 in the sport of football, and you can say 13 in basketball and go down whatever sport. You're going to be able to get the right kind of young people who are talented enough to be successful at the level we want to be successful at the University of Florida, which is competing for SEC and national championship. You're going to be able to get enough of those kind of kids doing it the right way. I believe that.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of it is that relational piece, that aspect that we talked about, being able to engage with these people and evaluate the right ones and make sure they have a lot of opportunity once they come to the University of Florida. But we're not going to promise something ahead of time.
Right.
And I think a lot of this stuff that's happened in the first, what are we, 10 months into NIL?
Yeah,
so we've acted like it's been here 10 years. It's been here 10 months.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that we're still learning, and a lot of the things that we fear or we're afraid might happen. Let's wait and see how things play out a little bit.
And obviously, like you mentioned, UA doesn't have a part in this, but how much does it help that there are fans at Florida that have taken the initiatives that they have, guys like Eddie Rojas and Hugh Hathcock, that make sure that they want to do things the right way, but also want to be out there and support, and make sure that Florida's athletes have access to these things. And for Gator Collective to be officially partnered with Florida Athletics. And I think for a lot of people that made them feel at ease that, whatever's going on NIL with Florida is going to be done the right way. And how much do you feel, I guess, fortunate to be in that situation as AD? Well,
certainly appreciative that there's that culture at the University of Florida. We're gonna do things the right way. We want to be great, but we also want to make sure we're doing it the right way. So, the people you mentioned, whether it's Hugh Hathcock or Eddie Rojas, they've been really good about that. I think they're probably still figuring this thing out the way we all are. So that's just the reality of the situation. But the University of Florida, whatever the rules, kind of like I went back earlier and I talked about how Billy just said, tell me what we have to work with and we'll figure it out. University of Florida is going to be able to figure out any system that's set up. If we have name, image, and likeness, we'll be fine. If we don't have name, image, and likeness for our athletes, the Gators are going to be just fine. We have top 5 public university. We have one of the top 5 athletic programs the last 30 years. We're the only sport that's won a national championship in the 2000s in football, men's basketball, baseball, not to mention track and softball and everything else. We're in a state of 21 million people. We have the most powerful sports brand in this state and one of the most powerful sports brands in the country. Gators are going to be fine, whatever the model is. And one of the reasons it's going to be fine is we've got people who are really committed to being exceptional, but also doing it the right way.
Absolutely. And then, as we kind of look at how this thing kind of moves forward, how do you and Nick and I have talked about this, there's always been, I think, a worry from some fans, and you got asked about this on the show, that the Gators would be at a disadvantage. How much will things be easier once facilities kind of get to the point that you guys feel like you guys are caught up in that sense, in terms of fundraising? You mentioned you guys have already had a record fundraising year,
right.
But you won't have to worry about that once this complex is done.
There's always going to be another facility project.
Sure.
You said that's the best job security for an AD. There's always going to be another facility.
It's just a fact of the matter, right? Your facility plan is always either in need of new or refurbishment, or else you're going to fall behind really quickly. So, look, Gator Nation is incredibly passionate. It's huge. It's coast to coast. We've got, it's international actually. We're gonna be able to mobilize Gators to do what is best for our student athletes and our teams. We're not gonna just throw our hands up and say, oh well, we're gonna keep working and figuring stuff out. We're gonna do things the right way. Those two things aren't mutually exclusive. You can do both. You can find ways to benefit your current student athletes and follow the rules and win at a high level. I believe that. It starts with having great leadership and, feel really good about a group of coaches we got. I think their mind's spinning a little bit right now because this is such a new environment. But there's a quote that I heard 2 or 3 years ago, maybe during the pandemic, and it's so appropriate for now that, and I may get it wrong, so bear with me, but in times of profound change, the learners inherit the earth, while the learned are beautifully equipped to live in a world that no longer exists. And so we've got one of the great things about our coaches, in addition to being great people and have the ability to relate to young people so well, they're incredibly bright. Smart people are always wanting to learn, and they're always going to figure things out. And this is an environment where no one has the answer right now. I feel like we'll be able to figure it out.
Yeah.
Does anything change, or what's the education piece to your boosters? Because for so long they have been writing checks to UF boosters or to the UAA or to UF, and now all of a sudden you're like, hey, we need several $1 million for NIL. And is there an education piece? Is there a push and pull between the different organizations? Because I know that you have needs to raise money for NIL, and there's the collective and the Gator Guard, but has there been an education piece for that?
Yes, and that's ongoing. This is an opportunity to support athletes in a way that you couldn't in the past. That's within the rules. That is on the up and up. Part of the benefit, if you will, of Gator Collective becoming an official sponsor is to kind of signal, hey, this is legitimtent, right? This isn't under the table. We're not hiding anything here.
So many people were like $3.99, $4.99. What do you mean? This, right? What are we getting? I think that you guys partnered and gave them the legitimacy to maybe even get some of the bigger dollars that isn't just the normal person.
Right. The question is going to be are those collective type models going to be sustainable? Right now, we don't know. It's brand new. Hey, the NIL that we all know is going to be sustainable is when you have a high profile student athlete who's a current student athlete, not a former student athlete, current student athlete who's high profile enough to get legitimate marketing sponsorship opportunities that have significant dollar figures.
Right here in this state.
And we've got those. Yeah. We have those on our campus now.
Yeah.
We have young people who are benefiting in that way. Those are the ones that are going to be sustainable because there's a business model behind it that allows it to be sustainable. And that's another reason why I think the Gators are going to be just fine, because a lot of that's going to naturally happen, right? What would Tim Tebow have done without anybody, a collective or anything? What would Tim Tebow have done? What would Joakim Noah have been able to do?
Al Horford.
Al Horford, yeah. Bridget Sloan. Look at Trendy Thomas. Trendy has had some opportunities.
Yeah.
We have a lot of athletes on our campus right now that are that people understand that they have name, image, and likeness value, and they can really help them promote whatever it is they're wanting to promote. The collectives are going to be an important part too, or have been an important part here in the short term of NIL. I think that's a really unique way. I run into a lot of Gators who want to contribute in this area, that think that this is really special. They want to find a way to legitimately support our athletes outside of paying for scholarships or outside of helping pay for facilities, other things they've done through Gator Boosters or the UF Foundation in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, the young coaches that you got, it was kind of interesting on the spring game out there. Had to be fun for you to look out on Florida Field, and you got basically the future of your football program and your two hoops programs out there. What's it like kind of embarking on this new chapter? We've talked about with football, but also with Kelly Ray Finley and Todd Golden, and just what those sports obviously mean to this campus and community. Well,
they're three different individuals, but they have a lot of commonalities. I keep going back to the relational piece. They're all three obviously really strong with how they interact with people and how they represent the Gators. Kelly's a little unique because she's been here, and then we actually, she served as interim this year. Yep. She obviously did a great job, and it was a proud moment to be able to give her the opportunity to continue and see what she can do going forward to build that program. And she's a lot of fun, and she's the kind of person that you quickly want to be around, and you want to see her do well, right? She's someone that's really easy to root for.
Can you take us behind the scenes of that a little bit? Because there was like a groundswell of fan support. Kim Mulkey came out and said, I don't know what Scott Stricklin's doing. Didn't name me by name, but she should have been hired already. So there was a groundswell of support. Just can you take us behind the scenes? What was the thought process like of that? And then for you to be able to do it in front of the team in the locker room like that, what was that moment like?
When we named Kelly the interim, two things. Number one, I said, Kelly, you go coach this team. You're going to have an opportunity at this thing, but you focus on coaching the team, and I promise you we're going to be fair with you as we go through this process. I'm going to look at some other people. I'm going to explore the market, but you're going to have an opportunity at the end of the day. And so, but I don't want you worrying about that. I want you just focused on taking care of these young ladies. Yeah. And to her credit, she did that. And so I wanted to honor that. I didn't want to, like, in the middle of January, okay, we're going to, now we're not going to wait till the end of the year, because I told her, let's get to the end of the year and then we'll figure this out. And she was a pro, right? She handled it magnificently. We did, look around and did a bunch of research, talked to a lot of people in that sport, spent a lot of time evaluating other potential candidates.
Yeah.
But it became obvious, just the job she was doing, that Kelly was going to be someone that was going to be hard to top. The other thing I was going to say is, when we named Kelly the interim, in my announcement, my public statement, I said we will name a permanent coach at the end of the season. I didn't say we would name a new coach. I said we name a permanent coach, because in the back of my mind, I was really pulling for Kelly because I'd been around her. She was someone that was very popular in the department. And so I think the week of the last regular season set of games, she formally interviewed with a group of us, did a great job. And so I guess it was the day after the last regular season game, we named her. So we kind of honored we're going to let them focus on the season. Yeah. And the players were obviously very excited. She makes connections, right? Yeah. She's had a connection with those young ladies. She recruited most of them. and they really trust her. And that was it was fun to see their reaction when we told them that she was going to have the opportunity going forward.
Before you touch on Todd, you had probably the craziest dynamic I don't think a lot of ADs go through, where you had both of your hoops programs, and the fans, one sector of them was saying, hire this coach, and the other sector was saying, fire this coach. And obviously you've talked at length about Mike White and what he's meant to you in this program. But I always thought, looking at it from the outside, he was clearly a candidate at other schools. I think it was Arizona. He was, rumored or reported to be a candidate for that job the year before. And then obviously this past year, Ole Miss is after him, Georgia's after him, and fans are calling for a coaching change. Whether or not that was something you even wanted to consider, from a financial standpoint, it doesn't really make sense to pull the plug when you know that a coach could, or other school could come and hire your coach. Is that something that you had to weigh? And how did you feel like it maybe worked out for everybody, that they kind of got what they were looking for?
Number one, obviously, great respect for Mike and as a person, and never had any issues with him. And I know he worked his tail off for the Gators. I was prepared to, it was a disappointing year, and you're prepared to do what you do at the end of every year when it's like that, is sit down and have, the conversation of how do we get better and how do we improve, and what's this going to look like? And never had a chance to have that conversation, right? Because he walked in before then and said, I'm going to take the Georgia job. And, at that point, you want to, make sure that this is what's best for him and his family. And if he felt that way, you want to, be understanding and supportive. I don't like the fact that we're going to, compete against him a couple times a year, just on a personal level, right?
Yeah.
But it's certainly unique. It's unusual. Given the, when you put everything in the, list everything that was going on as far as, the dynamics there, maybe not that surprising on balance, but, after that conversation, it was, it's an opportunity to say, okay, let's go find, next great leader and someone that can, embrace, what Florida basketball has been. And everybody talks about Billy, Billy's the one who set the standard. Billy Donovan, Coach Donovan set the standard, no question. But the Gators had success before Billy. And, you got to honor that. It can't just be about, we got to be just like Billy. We got to, Lon Kruger had some success, and there was some success, some teams before then. But you can't be afraid of following someone like that at the University of Florida. And I'm speaking from experience, right? I followed Jeremy Foley, and you can go down the list of if you're coming into a leadership position for the Gators, more than likely someone who came before you was really successful, and people really like that person. And you've got to be comfortable in who you are to not let that bother you, and to be your own person. We're not, Todd Golden's not going to be Billy Donovan, but he is going to do his best to emulate the success Billy had in his own way.
Sure.
Same thing with Billy Napier and Coach Spurrier or Urban or whatever other coaches you want to point out there. And you can go down the list of, we've had a lot of successful coaches that have come through here, a lot of successful people. So,
ton here right now.
What's that?
I said there's ton here right now with Mouse and Tim.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. And there's going to have to be somebody come in behind them ready to take that mantle and say, okay, I'm not going. That's not going to, I'm not going to be shaken by that. I'm not going to be intimidated by that.
Sure.
And it's one of the things that I think, Todd understands that, and Billy understands it, and they're excited for that opportunity to kind of build on. I always kind of explain it that you're not replacing Billy Donovan. I didn't replace Jeremy Foley, but it's almost like the UAA is this big banquet table, and they make room for another seat to slide someone else in. And so we've slid a chair in for Billy Napier, we've slid a chair in for Todd Golden, and I think they're going to fit in just fine at that table.
Is there a thought in your head though to be like, hey Billy, we have a chair here for you, just like send the you up text to Billy
to Billy Donovan,
like, hey, do you want to come back? Like, the office is still here for you, just in case you want to give college a try again.
He was the first person I called after Mike left my office
to offer the job,
to let him know. And you know, hey, I want to make you aware. I didn't want you to hear about it, you know, on the ticker or anything. And love any thoughts you might have. And, you know, one of the thoughts was not, Scott, I'd come back. That was not one of the thoughts he offered.
Yeah. But if the avenue was
throw it out
there, hey.
But I do value, you know, obviously, how could you not value what Billy did and want to pick his brain? It's just the same way I pick Jeremy Foley's brain all the time because he did a lot of really cool things and has a great perspective. And so,
how unique was it that he had some exposure to Todd and was able to give you feedback?
Yeah, it's really cool. You know, another Mark Dagnall, who's the coach of the Thunder in the NBA, who was an assistant for Billy here. I've gotten to know a little bit as well. Mark was someone else who you know, gave me Todd's name early on.
Yeah.
And
because of the analytics.
Because the analytics. Yeah. And his point was, I think I may have mentioned this at the press conference, that Mark said everything in the NBA is analytic based. Mm-hmm. Everything. Who you draft, how you run your scouting report, how you run your practices, everything. Mm-hmm. And his comment was, I'm surprised more of that has not gotten into college sports, college basketball. And, you know, there's a handful of guys who are kind of leaning into that, and Todd Golden's one of them. And, you know, Mark did not know Todd personally, but knew a lot about him because of the analytic piece.
Yeah. And obviously, as we wrap up with Scott Stricklin, I know we had some fan questions that we wanted to make sure that they you know, could get some of their questions asked. One of them that we got was, obviously, you've had to, you know, go through, you know, coaching hires and stuff. What have you learned about that here at the University of Florida? And just, you know, everything that comes with this job, I guess, regardless of the sport, but then also specific to some of the sports and some of the hires that you've had to make. Yeah.
You know, fit's really important. And you say that everywhere, but I probably have a better understanding of what that fit means. I do think the relational aspect that I talked about earlier is probably emphasized more than ever. In the past, I probably have made the mistake. I know I've made the mistake of overvaluing the technical aspects of coaching. Mm. Not that those aren't important, but I don't think it's as important as the leadership relational piece of coaching.
And culture building.
Exactly. So, you know, there's three things that that a good coach has to do. They've got to be able to attract the right people. They've got to be able to lead that group of people, and then they've got to be able to put them in position to be successful. And drawing up the X's and O's to me are that third part, and that's probably the least important part. Yeah. Getting the right people, making sure you can lead them, creating the culture, the accountability, all that. Make sure everybody is on the same page. Those two pieces have to be there before put them in a position to be successful on game day matters at all. So just kind of understanding that has been really a learning process. I've made mistakes. Mm-hmm. I'm excited that we got a chance to get some people in here. Maybe shows I've learned from some of those mistakes.
But you mentioned on Steve's show, you don't bat 1,000, you know, in this position. You know, no ADs do.
No. I don't know of one who has yet.
Just seeing the women's basketball situation play out, and then women's soccer, and how swiftly you kind of move with soccer, I wondered if maybe that was something you had learned through going through one situation and then seeing the way soccer was kind of playing and all the girls hitting the transfer portal, and then talking to Coach Amato. And I was wondering, well, that move seemed quick, and maybe that's just something Scott's learned. Hey, the culture in the program wasn't working, or the way that the foundation was being laid because it was new coaches, that wasn't working. Is that something you learned from going through women's basketball into soccer?
You know, I think every situation is unique, but you can learn something from every situation.
Sure.
And, you know, the women's basketball, we had first couple of years heard some issues. The last couple of years we heard no issues. Mm-hmm. And, you know, after the fact, after Cam wasn't here, some people came up and said, well, this was happening, but that never got back to us. So one of the things we learned is we've got to strengthen the ability for us to get real-time information and make sure the athletes have the ability to communicate and are comfortable doing so. Mm-hmm. And so we've put some things in place that was helpful the last few months with soccer. But I think your point is, you know, I have confidence in every one of our coaches on campus that they are leading their program and going to be able to build the culture and put us in position to be successful. But the minute you lose the confidence that someone can do that, you've got to make a change. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it happened last fall in football. It happened in the soccer piece. And you got to be willing to move on. And, you know, there's a part of that is, you know, you're admitting a mistake, the worst thing for me to do would be to say, well, I don't want to admit a mistake, so I'm just going to let this person continue in a role that they don't need to be in, because and basically put worry about what people think about me more than I worry about what's best for the Gators. Yeah. So if you're worried about what's best for the Gators, once you've realized you've lost confidence in that person's ability to lead, you got to make a change.
Especially with your relationship and history with Dan. I mean, I asked you after that press time, that must have been one of the most difficult decisions you made in your AD career.
Well, and not only, just because Dan and I had a long work experience together, but, he had a lot of success.
Yeah.
Right? 3 New Year's 6 bowls, and there was...
He had one bad year.
Yeah. And, one of the things is when you win, sometimes winning can hide issues, right? There can be issues there that you overlook or you think aren't as big a deal because you're winning games.
They're not affecting anything.
Right. Well, look, we're winning. Yeah. And so wins and losses a lot of time are symptoms, and if you're not careful, you can misdiagnose the symptoms.
Yeah.
And so that's a situation where obviously this year the symptoms started showing on the field that some of the concerns you had may be more significant than you thought, and it was time to do something there.
And then final question for you, Scott, from our readers at Gators Online. And you mentioned this, it never stops with facilities. And once you get to the complex, there's going to be the next. What's on your agenda after the complex is finished and that opens up this summer? What are some of the things that you have on the docket next that you want to attack?
A big part's going to be Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. That's just that's going to be a facility project that's going to run several $100 million. And so I wish we were further along to move quicker on that. But when you're considering spending that kind of money, you want to measure twice and cut once, as they say, right? So we've got 2 or 3 approaches we can take there, and we've vetted some of those options pretty thoroughly, but we're going to run a few more options out just as far as what that needs to look like. The end goal is the same, whatever approach we take, and the end goal is to have. We need an updated. I hate to use the word modern because that's such an iconic facility, but we need to be able to better accommodate people at the Swamp. We need to make it a better experience for people when they come. Some things need to be updated, and there are some areas of modernized. Video board, sound system, lights. But
north end zone TV board.
But concourse space is not right size for the number of people in there. Yeah. Concessions and restrooms and the premium spaces need a lot of work. We have opportunity for new premium spaces. There's a lot that goes into that. And instead of just starting to slap stuff up, we're trying to come up with a really comprehensive way to approach it and sequence it. Obviously, we want to, when you start digging into that kind of stuff, it's pretty significant. You don't want to do anything that's going to cause you to miss games in Gainesville. You want to sequence things where you can make sure you're playing all your games, because it's probably going to be something that takes more than one off season to do. So that's going to be a real focus. I know people, when I have this conversation, people's mind goes all over the place, and usually, don't make me move my seat but give me more leg room, right?
Yeah. So exactly. Well, that's a big thing, because people are saying, well, is the capacity going to be lower? And you're thinking, well, if you're putting in chair backs, then you're not squeezing people into bleachers anymore. But are bleachers comfortable, or would you rather sit at home in front of an 80-inch TV with air condition, on your lazy boy? Right. So you're trying to combat the at-home experience to give yourself
them a show to come to.
Yeah, that's a tricky balance.
Yeah.
It's interesting, and I love getting 90,000 people in the Swamp, right? And there's a real energy and a real vibe, and we want that for as long as people want to be able to want that opportunity. But I had a chance to go to the Super Bowl this year, and that new stadium out in LA, it's probably, and I don't know, but just being in it and eyeballing it, I'd say it's about 30% taller than the Swamp, and they have 70,000 seats. Everything's a chair back. There's tons of premium, and it is huge. Yeah. And so,
a big price tag there too.
You look at Raymond James Stadium, or some of how big those things are. The footprint, I'm guessing, of those stadiums are bigger than the Swamp. Sure. And they don't seat as many people. Right. And so there is some simple geometry that goes, physics that comes into play here that you've got to figure out. And maybe we can build enough new structure to accommodate 90,000 if that's the right number. But yeah, whenever you start, and every little thing has a trickle down. If you take the 16.5-inch seats, bleacher seats we currently have, and you make them 18 inches, so give everybody an extra inch and a half.
How many does that reduce across?
Everybody's the moving over. The first guy only moves over an inch and a half, but the next guy's moving over 3 inches. The next guy, before long, you've got people who are on the
guy in
20-yard line
now. Now all of a sudden in the end zone, exactly. Seat, go here.
So it's a really complex, layered puzzle. It's going to be it's been fun to work on. It's going to be really fun once we land on a specific plan and get a chance to share it with everybody and see it come to
no date in mind for a goal.
Yeah,
that's still being worked on.
Let me keep that to myself for now.
Well, one thing I hope you won't keep to yourself. I'm gonna selfishly ask this real quick before we leave. I know you always got a short list. What is your short list for the next concert in Ben Hill Griffin Stadium? Do you have some names that you can share with us? Can we put in some requests?
Yeah, I'll take requests. Absolutely. Who do you got?
Drake? I would say Drake? Zach has a musical album.
I don't think I could fill the swamp.
You could open for somebody.
I could open.
Drake? Does Drake do stadiums?
Drake would
definitely do a stadium.
Drake would fill the stadium.
He would fill the stadium. I don't know if you could afford him.
I don't know if we're still fundraising, but Drake would fill the stadium.
Okay.
Or I don't know what it would cost either.
I went down and saw Kenny Chesney at Raymond James at the end of April.
Spur would be about that.
And
I saw Kenny up in
quite a scene. Yeah.
I was in high school. I saw him at Summerfest up in Wisconsin. Wisconsin is beautiful in the summer. And he came out of one of those like big travel boxes that like they put speakers or stuff in. And it was just like sitting in the middle of the amphitheater. And all of a sudden, when the sun goes down, starts playing. And he pops out of this like travel box in the middle of an auditorium. And then there's, of course, security all around him because now he's walking through a standing only crowd up to the stage. It was really, really cool scene. He does a great show.
I have a teenage daughter that's made a case for Taylor Swift. So,
would sell out an arena.
Yeah.
You got to go with what's going to sell out. What are the country artists that would sell out?
I mean, there's a bunch. I just saw Garth Brooks at
that's been done.
I saw him at Death Valley, and they had 110,000 people. He starts playing Call in Baton Rouge. That's a whole
crazy.
vibe
I'm sure.
There. Yeah,
that was a lot of fun. The Garth concert, and
people still talk about that.
Yeah, we want to get some more. I think there's some opportunities too with Conjuring Ballpark, maybe to have some obviously different kind of acts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but. That'd be a fun outdoor little venue there, maybe in the fall.
You let us know when you need it covered. We'll be front stage.
And I'll get yelled at. I still get yelled all the time about left center. They want you to plant some tall palm trees in left center.
I would love.
And I tell them you thought of everything because when you were taking me around before it was even built, you're talking about the first base box camera shoots this way, and we need to have stuff because there's nothing over there. And I was like, I wouldn't have thought of that. I
don't think you can plant big enough trees that are going to mature quick enough to cover what's in left field. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to tell our friends at IFAS that would be a great spot for a beautiful new brick IFAS building. That's IFAS land over there. They haven't, they haven't taken me up on that yet. So I don't know. Maybe we put some billboards in left field that like we list championships on or something. Because I totally agree with everybody's thoughts on that.
Yeah.
And if we're naming things, when is the press box going to be named after a certain writer?
Well, Pat Dooley hadn't picked a date yet.
Okay.
When he wants that to happen. So
he wanted me to ask you. That's
what he was calling both of us for. He knew we were coming in. That's right. Well, Scott, we appreciate you taking out the time, coming up here and having a great almost hour with us. We didn't keep you quite as long as Steve, but you didn't take any calls. So
I enjoyed it.
Easier combo.
It's good stuff.
Appreciate you all for listening. You guys can go back and watch us on YouTube and Facebook as well. For Nick Del Torre, Scott Stricklin, I'm Zach Abolverdi.